Final score at Celtic Park, Celtic 1, Bayern Munich 2, and a really brave performance overall. Keeps Celtic just in this tie, and let's see where next week takes us. But in the meantime, I'm joined here by Brydo. Brydo, your initial response to last night's big performance and slightly disappointing result?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different words I would use to describe it, mate, to be honest. You're proud, frustrated, hopeful, terrified about what's maybe to come, but proud at the way that we seem to stay in the games, especially last night. We could have easily, on a different night, got a couple of different breaks that we didn't seem to get. So we'll touch on them. Frustrated at the way we conceded the goals. Wasn't necessarily good football that beat us. Hopeful because we're still in a tie against a very, very, very good side, and terrified that if they play to their optimum and we keep making the same mistakes away from home, then that could be pretty scary. But I like to think that, as the manager said, I think we'll learn a lot from the second half performance going forward about how we probably should try and deal with teams at that level. But fantastic atmosphere last night. We've been to so many of these Champions League nights now, you could be forgiven for thinking it was the same every time, but for whatever reason last night just felt like it was louder than ever before for me. But because of this, it actually really, really meant something. I think a lot of the Champions League games at home, we've maybe been out the tournament already. And we're kind of just wanting to kind of keep that reputation of having a strong atmosphere and stuff goes. So I thought the Bayern fans were superb as well, mate. So it was actually a really good night, and it was everything that was right about football, if I'm being honest. With the exception, obviously, the gulf and the money between the two clubs. So, it was. I'd like to still say it was a good night, with the exception of losing the game.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot to cover, Brydo, and we'll get into the various bits and bobs, in terms of the game itself, some of the comments before and after, and other bits in between. We'll get to the lineup just shortly in terms of the big call the manager had to make, but just in terms of Celtic's start to the game, and specifically, I mean, the start after 28 seconds where we thought we were in Dreamtown, but it wasn't to be. And I suppose that's football. Sometimes it's, what if that had gone in, or what if that decision had gone our way? But just very temporarily, very briefly, the place was on fire, and we thought we were in for a huge night. And it was a huge disappointment at the time after what looked to be the perfect start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, as perfect starts go. I mean, if that was to not be offside, I mean, that's the kind of moment where you end up at 4 rows down from where you started, which for me would mean I was off the edge. But it was just, it was so well worked. Engels does amazingly well to turn his man, and then that believe it or not, I mean, whether people agree or not, that was actually on the cards throughout the game. If we just got 2 passes accurate and tight and more aggressive. And more forward thinking, but that at that moment it was just wild. I mean, that's the only way I'd describe it, as absolutely wild. My dad pulled a muscle in his neck, and my pal who's next to me hurt his shoulder. So, I mean, the only 2 guys who were getting subbed off from the stand. The Celtic physio came up and looked after them, but it was just wild, and it was so deflating, obviously, for a few moments after that it didn't count, and it was like. As I mentioned there, you just sometimes need those breaks against these big teams and these big moments to go in your way. And between that and obviously maybe the penalty we'll talk about later, you just need them to go in your favour. And obviously it didn't, but such a well-worked goal. And it's just a shame it didn't count.
Yeah, and it was the right call. So there's no gripe there. But it was just what could have been. And I think, to your point, I don't know if we didn't get it to Nicholas Kuhn enough on the night. I don't think he had a great game overall, and there'll be frustration because he showed within the first minute what he's capable of. And I don't think we got it to him enough to do his thing. Now, that's easier said than done as well. The Bayern Munich players were smothering us. They're very, apart from their clear ability, they're very gifted in terms of the physicality, the strength that they offer and the pace and the power. And it can be hard to get out. But I thought, as you say, it was so well worked from Arne Engels, who used his body well to roll the midfielder before opening out for the pass. But as I say, it was a case of what could have been at that point, and we'll never know had we taken the lead. In terms of the lineup, obviously the big call pre-match, and we've all been speaking about it, was what to do when you get the crazy news that Daizen Maeda is somehow available, and you've then got 4 players playing for 3 positions, being Maeda, Nicholas Kuhn, Jota, and Adamida up top. He's gone with what I think was the right call, sticking with Adamida in terms of a guy in confident form, 4 goals in 3. Nicholas Kuhn absolutely is the star man on the right wing, and Maeda so far this season has been very effective on the left wing as well. Jota had to kick his heels on the bench. Was it the right call for you, Brydo?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Adamida showed that he could do it against Aston Villa. We don't spend £8 or £9 million on a striker to then not at least give him an opportunity, especially when he scored, was it 6 goals in 5 games or something like that, or 5 or 6, something like that.
Anyway, yeah.
So I just think that that was the right call. Also, Bayern are a reasonably physical side, so set pieces as well. We need to remember that Adamida would always do a job defensively from set pieces and stuff as well. But there's also the fact as well, these guys have worked hard to get us to that position. Jota's just in the door. There's a kind of moral they deserve to play as well. So to me, fitness from Jota, match fitness anyway, he does kind of current form, and then obviously Kuhn and Maeda, and then obviously Maeda's defensive stuff as well on the wing. I would say it was 100% the right choice, no matter what hindsight might tell us now.
Yeah, I thought it was the right call. We'll get to it later in the piece. Obviously, Maeda then goes up top later in the game and gave them all sorts of trouble. They really did. And I wonder now, will that sway the manager's thinking for next week, by which point Jota's that wee bit more match fit. He'll play a decent part against Dundee United at the weekend. And then there's a call to be made. And it would have been really harsh on Adamida not to start last night. Less so, in the away leg, if that's what he decides. And listen, there's plenty of time to get there, but such was Daizen Maeda's impact. He's so important to everything Celtic's doing just now, and there's definitely a big decision to be made. In terms of just first half action, Brydo, and how it all played out, as you'd probably expect, Munich getting a lot of the ball, a lot of the possession. As I say, technically very gifted footballers. And it was a real challenge for Celtic to be as disciplined as they were. And I thought they stood up to that challenge really well. It's so hard. I watched, you're watching it all pretty closely, but I watched Hatate at one point going to this guy and going to that guy and running back. And you need to do it, because see, the moment you don't do it, that's when they pounce. When they get the gap, when people get lazy, when people go sleeping, that's when they find the killer pass. And I thought, whether it was Hatate or anybody else, everybody, and I really do mean everybody in a Celtic shirt, stood up. The defending started from the front with Adamida, and they all put themselves about. And I suppose that's what makes it such a cruel blow to lose the goal. I mean, right on half-time, seconds before half-time. But I don't know. I was fairly pleased with what the boys put in the first half. What did you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. A lot of noise by some fans about Hatate not doing enough, and Engels was maybe, when he got the ball, was maybe rushed his pass or whatever. I just think that's the environment that you're playing against these top teams, that for whatever reason they're in that. But off the ball, I felt that the midfield, and like you say, from the front, Ida's never going to give you what Kyogo or Maeda's going to offer, and therefore we can't demand that of somebody who's not got it in his locker. But he does have other attributes that should allow us to build the game from him when we've got the possession of the ball or we win it back. But yeah, off the ball, just the energy, but we quite clearly had set up to be fairly reserved. And then in those moments where Engels and Hatate and McGregor were kind of chopping at the heels, when we did win it back, pouncing on that first and second ball, our immediate thought should have been to try and get the ball out wide to Maeda and Kuhn and hurt them with the pace, such as we did in 25 seconds. So we just didn't do it enough. And if we didn't, and when we did get the chance to do it, we panicked and we rushed the pass and we rushed the, Engels had a couple of them in the first half. We didn't have much in the first half, if we're being honest, but Engels had a couple of them in the first half where just a tiny bit more composure and a simpler pass, we would have maybe actually then been able to have some form of a controlled attack in the final third. So that would maybe be a bit disappointing on the ball. But off the ball, I think up until 5 seconds before half time, I couldn't agree more. I think, the proof's in the pudding. Schmeichel makes the save from Kane's header which is offside anyway. He makes a save from Elise at the front post, and I think that's it. I don't really remember a great deal. Maybe a few that came out to the feet and stuff like that. But there's blocks and stuff, but we've fully got to expect that against a team of that caliber with the Kanes, Musialas, Elises. These are world class players in their position, and up until that point, we did fantastically well, and it's just so deflating and so frustrating and so angry that we let that goal be scored the way it gets scored. It's not a football goal, it's a long ball up the line, and we just switch off, and it's unforgivable.
Yeah, we'll get to the specifics of the goal in a second. I just think you talk about the work that Kasper Schmeichel had to do in the first half, and it was relatively light. He'll have busier first halves, and he'll have had busier first halves throughout his career. And I think that in itself is testament to all the guys in front of him, because by doing their job and Trusty and other guys making key blocks at key times, that minimises the work that your goalie needs to do. And if you can do that, you're in with a chance. And at the same time, when he was needed, Schmeichel stepped up with some big moments. So the goal, I don't know. I mean, Greg Taylor gets criticism at different times, but my opinion on it was he was just really unfortunate the way it broke off him. Others think he should have been tighter in the first place, so maybe that's part of it. And I see you nodding, so maybe we'll hear from you in a second on that. But he is unfortunate with the break, and then it falls into the path of Elise. He's still got work to do at that point, but it is some strike. It's high and it's pacey and it's right in at the top of the net. And sometimes for me, I think you just put the pause up and say that's a really decent goal and we kick on. You disagree? So I'm interested to hear your take on it.
It's just as garbage defending, mate. It's absolutely garbage. It's got to mean more when you're defending. If you look along the line, it looks, for whatever reason, that long pass has isolated him from the rest of the defence. Trusty's 15 yards away from him. He's got to, it's not just on Taylor, by the way. Trusty has to read it as well, that he knows at least he's going to come in that left foot, and he's got to see the space that he can do it. And he doesn't shift across. He's too busy worried about what's maybe in the middle, which would be like say Kane or whatever. But it's a long ball down the line. Now, if you're a fullback and you're getting beat with a ball like that, then I'm sorry. It's just not good enough. You're right, he does take a wee bounce or whatever, but he's got to be physical. He's got to get across him. He's got to turn his body between him and the ball. And he doesn't. And see when Elise hits the shot, he's like 2 yards away from Taylor. So a guy of that quality, as much as it was unbelievably struck, like, he's in the box at the corner and he's got a free hit at a goalkeeper and he can just smash it in that top corner. And guys like that will do that. But there was no pressure on, is it Impicano or something like that, to play the pass, first of all. So that's a problem. And then it's just a long ball and you're 5 seconds from half time. 5 seconds from half time, of which we would all go in with a bit of a buzz. And it's just, for me, it's unforgivable because as a fullback who knows that guy's going to do it on his left foot, you've shown him into the most dangerous part of the box or where he can score a goal. He can't score a goal down the right. It's just, it's all that Greg Taylor. I mean, by the way, I've given him so much praise the last few weeks. I think he's been fantastic. This isn't a pile on Greg Taylor. I'm saying other people can help him out a wee bit, but all of his physicalities and all the negative parts of his physicality were shown up on 2 occasions in that game. That goal and the one where we broke away on the left-hand side, and he's actually in behind, and he has to check back because he knows he's not got the pace to damage them.
Yeah.
And I just think if you've got, and we all know, listen, to be fair to the club, they've went away and they're sorting Tierney out. But if Kieran Tierney's playing that game, they don't score that goal.
Yeah,
that's the levels I'm talking about.
This is something that's come up. Somebody I was chatting to after the game says, had Celtic paid the money to get Tierney, you've certainly got more of a chance in that game with Kieran Tierney. And maybe Arsenal were playing hardball and the deal wasn't possible. Who knows? But you've got a better shout with Kieran Tierney in there and the physicality that he offers. From Greg Taylor's point of view, he's as big and as strong as he's ever going to be. Right? That's not going to change. He can work hard. He can do what he's doing. But in terms of his physicality, that is what it is. And he maybe was just, Elise is a specimen in himself. He's a real athletic kind of guy, and he was just too big and too strong for him. And I'm somewhere in between on it, because I do think there was a fortunate break and stuff, but there are things that were in Greg Taylor's favour, and getting closer in the first place was certainly one of them, and not showing the guy inside is another. To your point, fullbacks generally should show wingers down the line and push them away from danger and then try and block the cross. We've allowed them to come in the other way. And it is, as we've said there, seconds before the whistle, and it just changes the dynamic. It changes the team talk. It changes the mood in the stadium, and it changes the look and feel for how you come out to the second half. And that was, what was so disappointing about it. I mean, we've spoken about Elise there and his qualities. Munich, as I said, did dominate the first half. Who impressed you, Brydo? Who were the real key men for them during that first 45? I
thought Harry Kane was exceptional all night, to be honest. The fullbacks were really good as well. At one point, their right back, I don't know their name, he just ran away from Daizen, which is like, we were all like, whoa, what's wrong with Daizen? Why that guy's ran past him? I thought it was more the collective, though, to be fair. I just thought everything was so on point, and it was so structured, and it was, listen, it didn't have a lot of flair in it. They weren't like putting wee intricate passes in behind us and wee flicks and tricks or anything like that you see for like a Real Madrid team. They weren't doing that, and we played really well against it. But it was just more, it was probably the collective of it, and just watching the movement. And Kane would drop in, not so much the first half, more second half, right enough, but then find himself, and it's 4 Celtic players around him at one point, and he still manages to open his body up and find the pass out to the right back. And if that's our players, we've probably lost the ball. I just think guys like that, as much as England captain, and probably a lot of dislike from just because of that, but the quality's undoubtedly there for sure. Musiala as well, but again, I maybe expected a bit more from Musiala, but still see the quality's unreal. Yeah, absolutely. There's some good comments coming in, and thanks to everyone who's joined us here in the live. Remember, you do need to be a member of the channel here on YouTube to comment here on the live pre- and post-match shows that we do. There's a link to do so in the show notes if you want to get involved. Let me dig out some of the comments, Brydo. Gypsy King says that Elise was world class, and I think I agree with that, and I think several of the players were world class. Pat McLaughlin, just in response to the chat about Greg Taylor, he says that he didn't show him inside at all. It's the ricochet that takes Elise in. What do you think? He gets caught square. Like when it ricochets off him, he's looking right at Elise. He's not side on to him. He's got to prepare for him not winning the ball. He's got to prepare that he's going to bring. I know he tries to bring it in, but his position's all wrong. When the ball comes over his head, he's looking towards the byline. He's got to be looking at the ball like that. He's caught out. There's no question of it. He's caught out, and he's not strong enough to then put Elise off. And then he bundles past them, and then just look at the images when he scores the goal. He's miles away from him. Okay, so that's your take on it, and Pat's obviously got his take as well. That's wrong. He's out of order. Pat, you're out of order. So you've also got San Fran. San Fran says, if Schlupp doesn't start in Munich, I give up. Let me see if I can find anything else. There was an interesting one, I thought, from Alex, 1967. Alex says that Ida had no need to be in an offside position. It's poor reading of the line and a shame for Kuhn. It was a great goal. I don't agree with that because, the margins are so slim. He is offside, but it's very, very tight. And it's the same kind of offside that saw Adam Ida score the winner for Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. Fine margins there, but you've got to play it close to the line so that when, on that occasion, Jack Butland makes a save from Bernardo's shot, Ida's in prime position to slot it home. And that's what strikers run the line. They're on the shoulder of the last man. Sometimes you'll get the break, sometimes you won't. Keeping in mind that everything at that time is going 100 miles an hour as well. So it's not like you can kind of toddle about and say, I'll step forward in a minute. It's all happening at lightning pace. So I don't fault Adam Ida for that at all. That's just part of being a number 9. But as I say, some good comments coming through. Keep them coming in. Myself and Brydo will be here for another, 15 to 20 minutes, something like that. So let us know any further questions or comments as we go. Brydo, as we noted there then, so you're hopeful that you can hold out, nothing each till half time, but that's not the case. You come back out for the second half, and the disappointment in the stadium, 15 minutes kind of dissipates that, and you come out full of more energy, but it's not long before we concede what is another really disappointing goal. Harry Kane is world class. I heard Brendan Rodgers describe him as one of the best strikers in the world.
I heard Vincent Kompany speaking, actually, and I'll get to his comment shortly. He was very respectful of Celtic as a club and a fan base and a group of players. And he was talking about Harry Kane. He obviously knows him very well from his time in England. And he said Harry Kane was always a good player. He's now even better. And it's because he works harder than anybody. He says he turns up like a youth player who's not yet made it in the game. He's still working so hard to impress. And credit to him for that. So on all of that note, you don't leave him alone at the back post, do you?
Absolutely. He's volleyed the ball in the 6-yard box from a corner. I mean, how does that even if it was a header, it would be a criminal, you know what I mean? And I mean, I don't know. In the first half, I think Johnson was marking him, so I don't know why. I've watched that 1,000 times nearly, and I'm still like, I don't. It's right the way from the corner being taken, of which there is an issue around that. They took a corner, and the referee blows the whistle. Kasper Schmeichel catches the ball, and it's a foul to us on Trusty, and the referee decides that we'll just retake the corner again, and we were under a bit of pressure at the time, and they get another corner, and I think it's the next one. They got a corner from that, and that's where they scored the goal. And it's so frustrating because you were like, I felt like the referee done that. You know, if there was any doubt, there was a couple of corner shouts for us, and he kept any doubt he seemed to give to them. But you're right, like Harry Kane. I mean, I actually think he probably is just about the best striker in the world. He scored 74 goals in 75 games since he joined Bayern Munich, and he's got like assists on top of that. It's an obscene amount of goals. So I was watching a video of someone, and there was one of the pros were saying that, you know, that's leadership at the back. You know, people pointing and dragging people around and who's marking who. How does nobody know that he's on his own at the back post? That defies belief, really. And I dare say they're all sitting scratching their heads, and somebody will need to put their hand up and say that it was their fault. Whoever that is, we don't know. But madness, absolute madness. And again, much like the first goal, they didn't have to work that hard for it, which is the most frustrating part of it against a team of that quality. Yeah,
that's true. I was listening back to a bit of analysis on Sports Sound today, but you know, it was obviously the commentary from last night, and the suggestion was, from a Bayern Munich point of view, it's a really well worked goal, but from a Celtic point of view, it's, you know, opposite, equally frustrating, if you like. And it was almost like Munich lured us into a false sense of security with the early corners. They had a few corners, you know, in the first half and whatever, and Johnson seemed to be managing Kane perfectly well. And then all of a sudden, they seem to, for this corner where they scored, they've bunched together, they've all gone in a direction, and I think Alistair Johnson just gets caught up in it, you know. And there's, again, I talked about the Maeda situation there. There's lots going on. This all happens in a split second. Johnson's gone. I don't know if it was Dyer or somebody, but Johnson's gone with whoever he's gone with. And as I say, from a Celtic point of view, it couldn't have fallen to a worse option from our side of things. And he's done what Harry Kane has done throughout his whole career. Some of the stats are outrageous. He's got 29 goals in his last 29 games for Bayern Munich. There's something special there. He scored 19 career goals against Kasper Schmeichel. That itself is a phenomenal stat. I think it's club and country type stuff there as well. So there's all sorts of numbers in Harry Kane's favour. And actually, if we're staying with him for now, later on in the game, I thought he showed all his knowledge and experience by dropping a bit deeper and just getting on the ball. And I was chatting to a mate about him today, and he said he just didn't give it away. He gets on it and he keeps it, and he gets on it and he keeps it. And that's, that seems pretty simple, but it's not as simple as you would think in that high pressure environment. When your team's under pressure, I thought he handled it really, really well. At that stage, Brydo, you think 2-0 down, 49 minutes, something like that, you're in this mountain to climb territory. You know, if it goes 3-0, you're in real trouble. So what do you think of the character of Celtic to really drag themselves back in? You know, I've titled this show, Brave Boys Show Up Against Bayern. You know, and I thought bravery and character and spirit, and I think there is real spirit in this team, were all huge. We know these guys have got ability, you know, these players at Celtic. You know, we know they're talented guys, but you need more than that at this kind of level. And I thought they really stepped up and showed the best of themselves across that second half.
Yeah, they did. I mean, when the second goal was in, we're obviously all just a bit... Nobody even like booed or anything. Everyone was just like, why is Harry Kane on his own? But then they score it, go and celebrate. And I watched Callum McGregor really closely, and he's just kind of going around everything to say, look, we need to keep lifting it, or we need to lift it. We need to just keep going. And I think it's guys like that we've said before about the leadership, but it's now experience of playing at this level. We spoke about the Dortmund game, and I think that battering off them has, we've alluded to it many times now, has stood us in good stead, because they know what they need to do to stop that happening, how to stay in the game. And that's where the pride comes from for me. We didn't panic. We didn't feel sorry for ourselves. We got back on the saddle and we kept going and thought, well, we can get a goal, then you never ever know. And we kept fighting, and I think that's really important that we've done that. And yeah, the Aston Villa game was another one. I would prefer it if we didn't go 2-0 down before we did it.
It'd be nice.
That'd be handy. That'd be really, maybe go 2-0 up, and chill out for a bit as opposed to that. But I just think, at this level, your mistakes get punished, and I think they know that. But there's two choices: we fade away, fall away, and crumble, or we get the chest out, stick out, and just keep running harder and faster and try and win your battles and see what happens by the 90 minutes. And that's what we kind of seen, especially the last maybe 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. I was with Paddy last night after the game, and obviously kind of chatting it all through. And Paddy had a feeling that Bayern took the foot off the gas to an extent or two. Now, they've got a big game against Bayer Leverkusen at the weekend. Munich are 8 points clear, I think, in the league. And certainly a win at the weekend would put them absolutely in touching distance of the title once again, having lost it last year to Bayer Leverkusen. He thinks they took the foot off the gas a wee bit. They made a couple of changes, didn't they? So Coman came on for Sané and Gnabry came on for Elise. Sané and Elise, particularly Elise, are a couple of their best players, but I wasn't quite buying it. I think, if it goes 3 or 4-0, then a manager's well within his rights to say, this one's done and dusted, I can properly rest. At 2-0 in the hotbed environment of Celtic Park, I don't think they took their foot off the gas, and me and Paddy had the debate. I think Celtic just put them under pressure, particularly when Maeda moved up top, that they hadn't been experienced in the first half. And a couple of other points is that some folks I was speaking to think we showed them too much respect in the first half. You do need to show them respect, but at some point you need to go, right, let's change it up here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the first half, tactically we showed them a lot of respect, but I think all of us accept that. If we were in nothing each, we would say that was a correct call. There was times where the forward pass was 100% on, and the player in possession might have been Engels, it might have been Johnson or Taylor or whoever, and we took the extra touch and went backwards as if to say, oh no, we need to keep the ball. And that's okay if that's the game plan or whatever, but there was opportunities to do it and we didn't do that. And it just allowed, we eventually lose the ball, and then Bayern put the pressure back on us. In the second half, after the second goal goes in, I'm with you on that. I don't think professional players take the foot off the gas unless they're 4 or 5 up. I just don't see that happening. I don't think they're naive enough, and I don't think guys like Harry Kane let them do that either. They've got experience, or Kimmich, they've got experienced players in there. I don't think that's what they do. I think they need to give ourselves a lot more credit than say that it was Bayern that decided that's how the game was going to finish. It was Engels getting on the ball in the final third, making good runs for Johnson to play him in, putting balls across, getting bodies in the box, Maeda putting them under pressure, Jota giving a bit of refreshment, the old youngsters' paradise causing absolute chaos ball when he go at it. Like, all of those things combined, Maeda being probably the focal point of everything, but he's the one when Maeda rounds the goalkeeper. That's because we're working hard and putting them under pressure. It's not because they've decided to take 10 touches. That's on us doing stuff more aggressively, more productive, more forward thinking. And we did it far quicker because we're 2-0 down. We did it against Aston Villa when we're 2-0 down. My only kind of argument would be, can we maybe get somewhere in the middle of that when it's nothing each, as opposed to being one or the other? Let's try and do something to still hurt teams when we win the ball back. But the second half, I think it's all on us. I think Alistair Johnson was like the Canadian Cafu. He was all over the place. I mean, on it, like every day, he was away every single time, and I just felt like energy levels, the fans were up for it. We get the goal at a reasonable time, and it leaves us a lot of time to try and get that equal. If that equalizer goes in, the roof, I mean, it just comes just comes off. So no, I think it's on Celtic. I can see why folk think that, but I think it's on Celtic how the game finished, not on the way Bayern were.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Paddy will be on the blower later on, digging him out for it. But I think
and just tell me wrong, just like McLaughlin there.
I'll just give him your number. I'll put him on to you. But I think, a couple of things going on there. I do think, to a point, it was great to see Celtic react in such a way, but rather than become reactionary to goals, goals change games and all that stuff, can we react before the goal, if that makes sense, or be proactive? It would be the better way to word that. There's Alistair Johnson steps up. I thought he really kicked on the second half, and he's presented with a new challenge in the face of Kingsley Coman, a really talented guy, been at Bayern for a number of years now. He done very little when he came on. I thought Johnson dealt with his threat whilst also offering his own threat going forward. But the big kind of move tactically, certainly from Celtic, was on the 65th minute. Jota comes on for Ida, and at the same time, Jeffrey Schlupp comes in for Greg Taylor. That allows us to put Maeda through the middle with Jota and Kuhn at that time on the wings. And all of a sudden, we just gave them something to think about. Up until that point, by and large, it had been completely the other way around. Now, all of a sudden, they're having to defend. Maeda is a nightmare. I really don't understand how big sides in Europe or moderate sides in Europe or whatever don't watch him and say, we need a guy like that. That guy's phenomenal. I'm amazed if there's no big offers coming over the years. There doesn't seem to be. There's never any big rumours, but he's such a phenomenon. And he was having an okay kind of game till that point. I thought he burst into life. And as you say, he's stealing the one off Manuel Neuer's toes. He's just a nuisance. He's just putting himself about there. And amongst all that, Brydo, and amongst all that noise, there's the penalty shout, and there's various comments in the penalty, which I'll highlight in just a second. But what's your take on it, first of all?
On the penalty?
Yeah, or the non-penalty.
Well, at first, we thought it was offside that they gave. And then it was like they're checking offside, and the kind of chat around us was, if it's not offside, I think he's fouled Engels. Quite hard to see, obviously. And then when you watch it, and the fact they took that long, and then the fact that the referee's been told to go and look at it, and I was looking at it. So my immediate thing was, when you play a certain level of football or whatever, amateur, junior, whatever, it's never a penalty in a million years. You'd be absolutely going off your head. But when I looked at it again about an hour before we came on here, and I was like, our boys put it on Twitter, I don't know who it was, but see when Upamecano gets a touch on the ball, which he clearly does, there's an argument that Engels then touches the ball straight after with his toe. Okay. So the one angle doesn't look like it, and then there's another angle you see the ball moving twice. And it's as if, he's won it, but Engels has also got a toe to it. So what's the argument around following through and then stamping on somebody's foot like that? Anywhere else in the park, it's a foul. We've seen people, I'm not saying it's a red card, but we've seen ridiculous decisions like that when the boys, kicked the ball and he's got somebody a bit higher up than that. But I've went full circle, and I was like, that's never a penalty. Oh, come on, we're maybe clutching there, but why do they take so long to look at it? And then I've looked at it again and thought, does Engels get the touch? You see his red boot. Does he get a touch on the ball? And then the guys come up and slowed it right down, and the ball changes as almost in a fraction of a second. But it's as if the Bayern Munich player gets it first, and then Engels gets a touch on it. And then if that is the case, then it's a Stonewall penalty. But the argument is then, if he doesn't touch it and he's played the ball, is it just a normal step? Okay. But then is that not, like a striker's through on goal and he cuts across the defender who's just running normally and he clips his heels accidentally, is sent off the park, and it's, I don't know. I mean, I think when the referee goes to that, I think there's a clear contact on Engels' foot, and the way the European games are and the decisions we've seen, I'm really gutted we didn't get a penalty for that.
Yeah, I think in the modern, I don't think overall penalties should be given for something like that, but in the modern game, that's what they are given for. I don't know if you've seen the penalty Bruges got. Did you see their penalty at the end?
The handoff.
It is a shambles. If anyone's got a minute, check out the highlights of Bruges versus Atalanta. The penalty they got versus the penalty that we didn't get is outrageous. And that's the thing with our Brydo. You've got all these images slowed down and different angles, but ultimately, excuse me, it still comes down to someone's opinion. It's a referee's opinion. But the fact that his VAR team have saw fit to call him over 99 times out of 100 now, that's the penalty. So for whatever reason, he didn't give it. A couple of comments coming in, and I just want to highlight two. So we've got San Fran Celtic saying that he loves how the ref can read the player's intent in order to disallow that penalty. If that happens outfield, and this is a really clear point, if that happens outfield, it's a free kick every single time. If that happens in the halfway line, Brydo, it's free kick to Celtic, and there's not even an issue. Why is it? Why is it not? Yeah. Why is it not the case in the box? So San Fran says, therefore, it is a penalty. No ifs, no buts. Thomas Dawson, Tommy makes a point that the fact the ref took so long at the VAR for the penalty was that UEFA trying to make sure the big guns get to the latter stages. They don't want a smaller nation upsetting a bigger one in coefficient. I don't know if that comes into the thinking overtly, but maybe there is a subconscious bias with it. You know, if you're a referee and you're refereeing Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man City, Barcelona, you maybe subconsciously nudge towards them. So who knows? But there's a lot of stuff at play there. At that point, it's 2-0 in the game at that point, isn't it, Brydo? And what a lift that could have given you, and it would have given you more time, you know, to get something out of it. But it's not to be. I've mentioned the couple of subs that obviously change how Celtic can play, specifically Jota coming in for Ida. I see you laughing because you know what's coming. You know what? Everyone knows what's coming. It's time for this week's episode of Yang Watch, and it's long overdue, Brydo. Now, I kid on about Yang a lot, I really do, but very genuinely and sincerely, for a time, I've always thought there's a good player there. And in recent times, you know, so he turns up against Wraith Rovers, does really well on Saturday night at the weekend, and it's like, but it's only Wraith Rovers. You know, you found your level, and guy's been a wee bit dismissive. You can only play against, you know, who's in front of you. So then he comes on in the biggest stage of all, you know, last night against one of the biggest, you know, 6 times Champions League winners, I think it is, Bayern Munich. So if that's your level, then you're doing okay. And I thought, you know, he wasn't phenomenal, Brydo, but he was very good, and he played a part. Celtic, you know, really put them under pressure in the last 20 minutes or so, and I think Yang was a huge part of that, and I think he really does deserve credit for it. I do get annoyed at some folks who become so entrenched in their positions, Celtic-wise, whether it is on Greg Taylor or whoever, Yang, guys that they deem not good enough. When they do have their good games, just give the guys credit. Don't just, you know, double down and all that kind of stuff. Credit what it's due. And at the end of the day, these guys are representing Celtic, and surely we all want them to do well, you know, whenever they can. And I thought from Yang's point of view, it was another important step for him. I've said before, he may or may not make it at Celtic, but there is talent there. And I thought he showed a lot of his talent last night.
Yeah, he definitely did. And what I liked the most was that he came on and wanted to impact the game. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't just pretending to be an extra jersey. He wanted to get on the ball, and he wanted to do stuff. Like I say, I was calling it kind of chaos ball or whatever when he's come, but I think it was a different threat there where he was. You know, he's very good at dribbling, obviously, but he was going inside. They changed their fullback straight away when Kuhn went off. They changed their left back straight away and brought on it was a Japanese boy or something like. And Yang, I think Yang had his number, to be honest with you. And he created that. And you're right about the kind of pile-on with certain players and people being stubborn in their opinions. You know, the amount of times that we've slated certain players, I say slated for good reason, and then they've been good. We all want every Celtic player to be good. You know, surely that's the optimum. That's what we're all wanting. So, but Yang's biggest contribution was in Yang's fashion, though, mate. You can't concede, was that he set that goal up by deliberately mishitting the ball.
That's how clever he is.
Move. And not every player can do that, mate. Not everyone can do that. You did see Harry Kane doing that. So, no, but all joking aside, I agree with you. There is talent there. I've been on record with you and saying I don't think he'll do it at Celtic. I've nailed my colours to the mast of that part. But if he keeps performing like that, then I'm happy to be proven wrong for sure.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's fair. And he's got a fair bit to go if he's going to make it to Celtic, and he's up against some serious competition. You know, Jota, Kuhn, Maeda, if he's back on the wings at some point, James Forrest, who I think is back training this week, for example. So yeah, you know, there's lots going on there. But I think just take last night in isolation, he certainly played a part. He's 2 minutes on the park when Celtic score, so it's not all Young's work, but he's come in and played a part there. It's a bit of Stramash in the box, and he's just got something on it to get it in a busy area. And Maeda doing what Maeda does in terms of reacting quickest, gets you the nod, and you're right back in the game on the 79th minute. Just a final comment on Yang from Tommy Dawson. He says, Yang watch, can't wait to hear it tonight. He changed the game for me, surprisingly, Tino. What's the surprise, Thomas? I've been telling you for weeks and months that Yang changes games, and so it proved to be. Brydo, we've then got, 10, 11 minutes of normal time left, and it ended up being 7 minutes beyond that. Did you feel Celtic were going to get the equaliser? Was it coming?
Yeah, I really thought it was. I thought it was going to be one of those moments, and I thought we put enough into it to deserve it, and we created enough opportunities. Like I said at the top of the show, it was, you need to get the breaks, with the offside goal, with the penalty shout, with the deflected shots. Hatate had a couple at the edge of the box. I think they deflected it for a corner or whatever, and Neuer misses the ball, but unfortunately nobody else has got the pace to catch up with Daizen Maeda to follow up. Maeda rounds him, and I expect maybe Daizen to tuck that away. So we created opportunities in the second half, and it all came from hard work, winning it back. Then I'm not saying there was a lull in the crowd at any point, but certainly then the crowd was lifted at that point after, especially after the goal. And it was coming. You felt it was coming. The crowd were going bananas. I mean, absolutely, we were throwing it was mad, and everybody was all pushing in the same pool in the same direction. And we just ran out of time. I think another 5-10 minutes, then we made ourselves, each. We left ourselves just a bit too much to do too late in the game, but we all left the ground feeling far better for having a proper go, and I think that's an important factor as well at that level.
Yeah, there's ways to lose a game of football, and if you have to lose, go down scrapping. And I think that's exactly what Celtic done. I think Bayern Munich's players were relatively relieved to hear the final whistle, and Harry Kane spoke very respectfully, saying, it's a hard place to come. We needed to do better in places, and we're just pleased to get the result, and we can kick on to next week. I'd mentioned Vincent Kompany, and I just thought he was so... I don't know much about him greatly. He's obviously been a great player over the years, but I certainly haven't followed his progress at Bayern or anything particularly closely. But he spoke so highly of Celtic in terms of, as a club, the special atmosphere within the stadium. He was well aware of Celtic's recent unbeaten record at home in the Champions League, and he showed Celtic all the respect that you would hope to hear, but don't always hear. And again, to kind of echo Kane's words, he was saying they were pleased to get the result, and they're now regrouped for the home tie next Tuesday. Brydo, I'd asked the question within the show title, is this tie still alive? So it's 2-1, and you're now going to Munich against one of the Champions League big hitters, as I mentioned, 6-time winners. They've got a serious reputation in this tournament. Year on year, they will be one of the favourites. When you think at the top of the tournament, who's in the mix? Absolutely Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, usually Man City, maybe less so this year. Teams like Barcelona and everyone else kind of falls a wee bit behind that. So what do you think? Have we got a chance, a slim chance, no chance? Where are you at on it?
We've got 100% got a chance. 100%. I know that the golfing quality of players is obviously plenty to see and the money they get to spend, but I think last night we can take a lot from it. Like I said, the 2 goals they scored came from lack of concentration and mistakes, if you like. If we're a bit more streetwise in the game as well, I think, go down when you get a touch in the back or whatever to try and build the game. I think with Maeda, Kuhn and Jota's pace, with a bit of composure, listen, our front players can really hurt them. And listen, tell me you can't envisage a ball getting played through to Daizen Maeda, cuts across the defender, gets wiped out, and they go down to 10 men. Like, things like that can happen in football. And when Queen's Park are battering Rangers 1-0 at Ibrox, then that upsets can happen. And quite frankly, I think it's probably less likely that will happen. But you asked me the question, is there a chance? And I think there's absolutely a chance. And we should go being hopeful. I did say there's also a bit of terrified aspect about it too, because they can turn it on. We know that. But I think come Tuesday afternoon, I'll be excited for the game. And I think, we've got absolutely nothing to lose. And I think Brendan Rodgers will tell the players that they can go and, make history and send shockwaves to everybody else that we are a proper team, and that result would do that. So stay in the game. Only need to win 1-0 to take it to extra time as well. So, I think we've got enough firepower to cause them problems, but it is an uphill task. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think the players, having now gone toe-to-toe with Bayern, seen pretty much, the best of what Munich have got to offer. I don't know will they be much better than that at home? I don't know. I don't know if they've got many more levels to go to. They were very good in the first half. They showed good control, but that's kind of what we'll be up against. So the players have seen it. And yes, be respectful of it, but don't be fearful of it. Go in and, believe in yourself and see what happens, because as you say, a sending off, an early goal. I think Sanfran's made the point here. If we score first, then all bets are off. Celtic could get a real lift from that. Huge plus to have Celtic away fans in the stadium. That was obviously in the balance, so that's all in the mix. And yeah, it's a slim chance, but it is a chance. I see Fred here, Fred Williams, good friend of the show. He says the tie is done, guys. We were 6-1 to win at home last night. We have zero chance. Completely disagree, Fred. Completely disagree. They will be strong favourites, and rightly so, but we have a chance. There's a lot of talent in this Celtic side. And on any given night, you can have that situation where maybe we're at our best and they have an off night, or something goes their way, or a dodgy refereeing decision goes against them, whatever it might be. So I think there is a chance, and there's a lot to be excited about heading out there, Brydo. I do think, I think Tommy Dawson has said it in the comments as well, that we must start with Maeda through the middle, though, because we've seen in the last 30 minutes or so last night, the chaos that can cause. That's part of Daizen's game, chaos ball, whatever you want to call it, and that could really shake them up on the night.
Yeah, I think the team would be pretty much the same. There's an argument that Taylor would be swapped for Sloop. Sloop's obviously faster and stronger than Taylor. That could be an option maybe. But he's he looked at his first 5 minutes, he looked as if he was ice skating. But yeah, I think Jota, Maeda and Kuhn, and the players in behind, Engels and Hatate, maybe if they have one of those days where everything Hatate does turns into absolute gold dust, you just never know. I don't listen what Fred was saying there. It could quite easily happen, it could be 4 or 5 next week, but just as easily in football, man, it's like something could go in. If we didn't get the luck last night, so we might get the luck next week for a decision or a deflection or anything like that at all to stay in the game. And the good thing is, last night, the way we finished the game means we're still in the game. And, it's 90 minutes or 120 minutes of penalties. It is what it is. Nobody telling me we can't go away there and sneak a 1-0 win. Nobody.
Somebody worded it as, we're at half-time in the tie and we're only a goal down. And that's in its simplest fashion. Yeah, you're going away from home and everything that it offers, but this is a Celtic side, Brydo, now with some pretty decent experience. Callum McGregor's been there and done it. Casper Schmeichel at the back has been there and done it. CCV's not a kid. Trusty's not a kid. These guys have got something about them. Jota returns to us at 25 years of age. Maeda's late 20, 27, 28, something like that. And then you've got the young talent, the Engels and the Kuhns and Yangs, if I can throw him in the mix, and others around it. So there's lots going on in this Celtic side. What I do like, and just to kind of round things off, I was speaking to Paddy for the pre-match about the fact that we are progressing and we are getting more mature in Europe and we are growing as a team. And if the core of this team can stay together and Brendan Rodgers commits for longer than his current 3-year deal, then who knows? As long as we're gradually getting better, and I think the signs are there that this season that we absolutely have done. Great comments come in. Fred's absolutely spot on. He said that's why we love debating and sharing opinions, Tino, and he's absolutely right. That's what it's all about. Who did you offer the square go to? Pat McLaughlin? Pat, he's all talk. Don't worry about it. There's no nothing to worry about there. But thanks for the various other comments come in. Before I forget to mention, I met 2 really great guys before the game, Paul Carr and Brian McGuinness, 2 lads that I know pretty well. It's great to see them, and just a wee shout out for them. Hope they enjoyed their night, whatever it looked like. But as I say, we know the challenge we face next week, but in the meantime, in terms of summing this one up, I think there's a lot of pride in it. Brave, a lot of character, these kind of terms getting bandied around. And that's where I sit on it. I think the players will be feeling good about themselves as well. I don't know what today looks like after a game like that. It's probably more rest, recovery, analysis, that kind of thing. We've got Dundee United at the weekend, as mentioned, but they should be feeling good that they've gone toe-to-toe with one of the biggest guns in Europe and come out with a pretty credible result and a chance, slim as it may be, a chance of progression. Your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, final thoughts were a great night regarding atmosphere and playing against a top side, top side, in fact. But there's many elements I think we should be positive about after that performance. We are still in the tie, no matter how much the chance. It's still a challenge that we can still overcome. And I just think that the players should hopefully be learning from playing against this quality opposition. And the more we play against them, the better they'll become. The hope is that year on year we keep the players together for longer and get the benefit of that experience. So yeah, they go into next week. I just think they need to be a bit more clever around certain things, just a bit more streetwise. You know, play the game. You know, watch like the likes of Harry Kane, what he does at certain parts of the game. You know, takes the hit, goes down, wastes about 3 or 4 minutes. Just wee things like that. I feel like we're too honest. We don't make that many fouls. So adding all that together, really positive about last night. And let's say cautiously optimistic for next week, I think would be a good phrase for me. So, but you know what? We did not disgrace ourselves, and we should be fairly proud of where we have been this season as a club.
Yeah, I'll take that, Brydo. Cautiously optimistic. That's what we'll go for ahead of next week's tie. Thanks for all the brilliant comments. Thanks to everyone who continues to show up and make the comments and support what we're doing here at the Celtic Exchange. Last comment of the day will go to Sean Boost, who says, I just came on to apologise to Tino. Yang had a good influence when he came on. Sean, apology fully accepted, and I'm glad that yourself and a few others are getting back on the Yang bus. Fred was on it, then he was off it. Let's hope he and others are back on it. Right, cheers for joining us here on a Thursday afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, with the pre-match ahead of Celtic's game with Dundee United. That's a 3 o'clock kick-off at Celtic Park on Saturday. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll see you all again really soon.